Welcome back everyone. As you can see, I've been shopping and this is because today we're making the iconic warm starter called the bouchée à la reine. The bouchée à la reine is really a top classic French dish that everybody in France knows and loves. But what is the bouchée à la reine? So it is made simply out of this. And this is a vol au vent or bouchée in France. It's a puff pastry casing that's emptied and it needs to be filled with a sauce. Now, following the Escoffier guide here, we're going to make the appellation that is called the à la reine filling, meaning a Parisian sauce, which is a velouté infused with chicken and mushroom flavors. But today we're going to do the whole thing by the book. We're going to create a consommé and we're going to boil the chicken with the vegetable, use the juice, make our velouté, add some mushrooms, add some chicken, and we're going to further enrich the whole lot with cream and egg yolk to have the real recipe. When this is done, it's a matter of simply filling this lovely casing with the sauce, the pieces of mushroom, the chicken, and you have on your hand a flavor bomb. Highly recommend it. In order to make a classic bouchée à la reine, you're gonna need to do some food preparation, but actually not too much. The biggest thing you have to do is this. This is the puff pastry casing called the vol au vent or bouchée in French, and the little decoration item that we've got here. Once you've got that, the rest is pretty straightforward. This is all the food prep in order to get our poached chicken ready. Carrots, leeks, celery, onions with cloves, juniper berries, and this is a large size bouquet garni, homemade, with bay leaf, thyme, and there's some celery stalks, some parsley stalks, and the rest of my parsley actually ended up in the chicken. This is here some extra mushroom. These are morel mushroom that I'm gonna add additionally to add even more flavor to my dish. But for the rest, it's all straightforward off the shelf things like eggs, flour, butter, and I'll put all the ingredients in the video description. Now let's start the recipe. Now the first thing we're going to do is basically attach the chicken so that we can poach it and it doesn't go all over the place with the legs. So I'm going to use the good old Jacques Pepin technique. I use a large piece of string like that you put under the chicken in the front where the drumsticks are, and you're going to pull your string up like this, cross it, okay, and you're going to just basically roll around each of the string under the drumstick, so you see, and then pull it backwards. So that's what it kind of gives you. And you're going to turn the chicken around, okay, and then you're going to anchor these with the wings. Once you've turned your chicken over, it is just a matter of taking the string and doing multiple turns like this, so that when we're going to secure the whole thing, it doesn't move. And you can then tie your knot, and that should be enough for what we're going to be doing. And it's just poaching a chicken, it's not for the carving. So that's it. Once you're done with the trussing, we're going to be using a lemon here, and we're going to lemon the chicken. And this is to keep the whitish color of the chicken when we're going to poach it, because it's got a tendency to go a little bit dark. So make sure you rub the lemon all over. Now, poaching the chicken is actually very easy. You start off by putting all your vegetables at the bottom of your pan, and you create what we call a bed of vegetables. You then add your whole chicken in, and you finish off by adding your onions on the side. I've got the juniper berries in here, and if you like, a few peppercorns. Lastly, you pour enough water to just cover your chicken. That should be enough. Now it is important to note that when you poach a chicken like this, you don't want to have a very large pan. Make sure it just fits inside, otherwise the taste is going to be too diluted. So when you're here, we're going to put the heat on high and bring this to the boil. As soon as the first boils appears, as you can see here, you're going to add a little bit of salt, and really just a pinch. And we're going to be able to put this now on a simmer and leave it to cook for about 40 minutes. So let's have a smell. Oh, the freshness of the leeks here, you know, like the celery, the parsley, everything in there. It's already starts to smell very good. That's going to be lovely. So 40 minutes with the lid on. While the chicken is cooking or poaching on the side, it's time to prepare our garnish. So you need to know that any vol au vent or bouchée that is filled with a garnish is called a salpicon. So the garnish itself is called a salpicon, and this is the mix of meats and vegetable that you blend together, and they have to be diced. So anything you have has to be roughly some kind of little cube. So for today I thought it was a bit of a good time to recap for the if you want to do that with the mushrooms. So you can cut the bottom and you try to cut in the white of the mushrooms some slices like that, as much as you can. If it's not all white, doesn't matter. Once you've got that, it's just a matter of like making this little bâtonnets, as we call them in France, and then turn them over and try to get, it's not exact, let me trim these ones, and you make these little cubes. Okay, and this is roughly the type of garnish we're going to be using. Once you finish dicing, this cut is, by the way, called the brunoise in French cooking. So when the brunoise is ready, you're left with all these ugly leftovers. So don't worry, we're not throwing them away. We're going to roughly chop all of those and add them to the chicken to add some mushroomy flavor. Okay, so now that the mushrooms are ready, we're gonna white cook them. So how to white cook mushroom is something we've seen before. You start with your dices of mushrooms, like that. You add a little bit of water, and not too much. Then you add a little bit of lemon. Usually it's 1 or 2 squeeze. I'm using the leftovers that I've used from the chicken. And this is just to keep the color, the white color on the mushrooms. And finally, a few dices of butter. I'm going to bring this to the boil and leave it to cook for a few minutes. As soon as the water boils, you leave your mushroom to cook like this for 3 to 4 minutes, and then turn the heat off and reserve them on the side. And now we're going to make a roux, which is the base of the velouté. So you start with 40 grams of butter. We're going to melt and mix it with 40 grams of flour. As soon as your butter is melted, you add all of the flour in, 40 grams. Mix well. Once you get your paste like this, you're going to cook it on very low heat, like this, stirring constantly for 1 to 2 minutes. Do not exceed 3 minutes, whatever you do. After 2 minutes, turn your heat off and you leave the roux to cool down. So just as an information, what we've just done, cooking that roux for 2 minutes, is to kill that extreme floury taste. We remove the taste of flour in the preparation. So leave this on the side and let it totally cool down. Once the chicken is cooked, you take a fork like this, and I'm using the string there, and I'm just gonna try to pull it out of the water and put it on a tray, ready for carving. So now that we have our chicken that is poached, we got a nice consommé, almost like a chicken stock, but there is a lot of fat in there. And this is something we need to get rid of before we can move forward. And this is all this little deposit. So the one thing you can do, take a kitchen towel like that, and when the fat goes at the top, you plunge your kitchen towel in, just so it absorbs the fat. Take it off and take it out of there. That's going to take all the fat out at once. Now that we have removed the excess of grease, we're then ready to take the best part of that broth for our bouchée à la reine. So when you're finished and you got some of the broth left over, you can absolutely serve it with your dinner as a starter, as a little soup with the chicken. And this is what I would do. Start off with a light chicken consommé with pieces of chicken, and follow up with the bouchée à la reine. Now that we have a clear and non-greasy consommé, as you can see here, it's very nice. We're gonna heat it up again, bring it to the boil, and reduce it a little bit to concentrate the flavor in preparation for our velouté. We want to get this flavor going, so nice and concentrated. And now for the chicken. So for this recipe, you're only gonna be using the breast. So it's just a matter of taking the skin off, and once the skin is off, you just basically detach both of the breasts, so we can cut them in cubes. Look at that, nice and tender, perfect. And now let's cut this chicken breast. Now keep in mind that we need to make these types of dices, so if you can, same technique, if it's a bit cold, it's better. Try to carve first in one way, and once you've got that, you try to rotate the meat, and as much as you can, try to make really little pieces basically. Once your diced chicken is ready, just put everything in a little container and reserve it on the side for further use when you're going to make the velouté. And now we are finally ready to start our velouté. So you start with the pan where you've got your cold roux, as you can see, it's all cold. And we're going to start to pour in that boiling chicken stock or chicken broth that we had before. And dilute all of the roux that we've got here before we turn the heat on. Once the roux is diluted, put the heat on to like medium low, and you're gonna keep on incorporating not everything but 3/4 of the consommé. Finish adding the stock in and keep stirring. Once all the chicken broth is in, it's time to add all of the mushrooms and a little bit of the juice from the mushrooms, about that much. Next come the morels, mix the whole lot. To finish, you're gonna add half of your chicken in and 2 or more tablespoons of cream. Mix again. To finish off, you add a little bit of salt, you correct the seasoning, so make sure you taste your preparation. Once the salt is in, it's just a matter of leaving that velouté to cook for 20 to 25 minutes, and that's gonna make it reduce and thicken just to the amount of consistency we're looking for. After 25 minutes, you can see everything has thickened and it's nice and thick enough to be poured in the bouché. I'm going to show you now my last little, this is my personal touch. I like to add a little bit of cognac as well as a little bit of parsley in. And that really adds a little bit of color and a bit of joy, because just the plain white is not the best, and I love the taste of parsley. Now, just before you serve, there's one last step you need to do, which is putting an egg yolk in the mix. So you take a little bit of your sauce. That has to be done off the heat, by the way. And you're gonna blend everything before pouring in your mix. Pour everything in, and you're gonna give it a final stir with the whisk. Et voilà, it's done. This is the Escoffier style bouché à la reine velouté. As you can see, with that yellow tint and the hint of green, is absolutely beautiful and it tastes great. Now let's dress up the plates. And now for the serving. So the first thing you need to do is warm up the vol au vent, and to empty the inside by cutting off the little head that's here. When it comes to serving, because this is a mini one, what I've done with the chicken here is I've kept some fresh pieces of chicken, some cubes of chicken, so 2 or 3 cubes is usually enough at the bottom, as a little surprise. And then you just pour another generous amount of that mix with some of the mushroom, some of the chicken, and of course some of the sauce. So it is common that it needs to kind of overflow usually, but it may not be the cup of tea of everyone. So I just put a little bit and let it overflow a little bit, but not too much. Then you can add a little morel maybe on the side like that. And I'm gonna add the little head here, make it look nice. And there you go. But that's it, guys. We've completed the bouché à la reine recipe in the style of Escoffier, and I'm really glad I've managed to pull it off, because the whole of France otherwise would have been on my back telling me, my God, you've messed up the bouché à la reine, how could you? But anyway, it's a really great dish, such an icon. If you can try it, do try it. And if you like the video, as always, put it a like, drop me a comment if you try the recipe. And if you're not a subscriber, don't forget to subscribe. You can also become a patron on my Patreon page. That really helps me make more French cooking videos. But that's it for now. I see you all next Tuesday for another video. Bye bye.